So we have people joining in this session, and we are on time as well. Okay, cool. I guess we should begin. Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day and are all set for this exciting session ahead. I'm Harshit Paul, a product marketer at Lambda Test, and I'll be your host for this session on building an Appium 2.0 plugin live. Appium 2.0 is the new talk of the town. It re-envisions Appium as a platform where plugins can be easily created and shared. Plugins are the way to going forward using Appium now, and this session is your front row ticket to building a custom Appium 2.0 plugin live with us. Before we begin, let's quickly take care of a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, so in case you need to drop off midway, you can find the entire recording of this session in the TestMu events under the schedule section. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A towards the end of the session, so in case you have any questions while we're presenting, feel free to drop them in the chat on the right side under the Q&A. You can also react while we are presenting to the entire session by using the emojis on the bottom of the screen. So feel free to use them at your own will. Having said that, join me in welcoming our speakers, Sai Krishna and Srinivasan Sekar. Sai Krishna is a principal consultant at Thoughtworks with 12 years of experience. Over the course of his career, he has worked extensively on testing different mobile applications and building automation frameworks. He is an active contributor and the member of the Appium organization. He loves contributing to open source technologies and is passionate about creating values by introducing new ways of thinking. We also have Srinivasan, a lead consultant at Thoughtworks. Srinivasan is also a member of Appium community and also a contributor to not just Appium, but other open source repositories like Selenium, WebDriver.io, Tycho, and more. Srinivasan has worked extensively on testing various microservices, event-driven apps, and also mobile and web apps. He specializes in building automation frameworks from scratch. He has spoken at various conferences, including the Selenium Conf, Appium Conf, Agile India, Quest for Quality, Belgrade Test Conf, and FOSDEM, and now at TestMu Conf 2023. Thanks a lot for joining us, Sai and Srinivasan. Over to you.
Hey, thank you, Harshit. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Harshit.
Let's quickly jump in. I'm gonna share
I
my
hope
screen.
audience is able to hear us perfectly well. Maybe some thumbs ups will be helpful for us. Awesome.
Okay, Srini, you're able to see
And
my screen?
yes,
Okay, fantastic. So, like Harshit said, Appium 2.0 very recently was released and everyone's talking about it, right? And today, what me and Srini would want to share with you folks is about how would you build an Appium 2.0 plugin, right? So we're going to live code, we're going to take you through the base of it, and we're actually going to build a plugin. And let's see if time permits, we can also publish the plugin directly to NPM. Okay, so that's what we're going to typically do, and we're also going to not only build, but we're also going to explain things about how different, you know, Appium 2, which has got plugin and a driver architecture. So we're also going to talk about the architectural changes of Appium 2, so that you also get a very high level idea about the architectural changes, what's actually happened in Appium 2.0. I'll skip this slide because Harshit did a great job in introducing me and Srini. But you want to catch up with me and Srini, you can catch up us on Twitter as well as on GitHub. So we guys are active in these two spaces, and of course LinkedIn as well. And let's jump in straight.
cool. I think people might have been familiar with Appium philosophy with respect to Appium 1, and there is no change with respect to Appium philosophy. Fundamentally, it's quite similar and same for Appium 2.0 as well. I mean, we are going to test the same app, we are going to ship the same app to the store, we are not going to add any SDK as part of Appium 2.0 or by introducing a new plugin or so. And as usual, Appium is going to still support all the languages that it's been supporting in Appium 1 as part of client libraries, including Java Client, WebDriver.io been supporting for JavaScript, and Ruby, Python are all active sale. And another big change is that WebDriver protocol as a W3C spec. We have adopted that and still open source. So let's jump straight away to what is an Appium plugin, right? So where does it stand? So probably if you know the architecture, we're going to explain a little bit about architecture before we start our live coding. So where does plugin helps us? Let's say Appium is a client-server architecture, as we all know, right? I wanted to introduce a new endpoint in Appium. How do we introduce it? It's quite simple in Appium 2.0. We can create a new plugin just to introduce a new endpoint in Appium without changing anything in fundamentally anything in the base commands that Appium already supports. Another use case is, let's say we wanted to override a functionality which, okay, in case of if my voice is breaking, I would suggest you folks to go ahead to uh, from HD higher resolution to lower resolution, HD low definition, basically from highly HD to low definition.
Yeah, let me
And is it everyone
also do
getting
that.
static voices all across, or is it only Matthew?
No, myself as well, Srini. Even I'm getting static voice.
Okay, I'll just quickly switch my mic.
Maybe, yeah, switch it probably to your system mic. Okay. Is it from both of us or it's just Srini? Is it okay now? Is it okay from my side? If someone can. Okay, so Srini, it's only you. Can you try switching it? Okay. Meanwhile, Srini jumps in, right? I'll probably pick it up from here. When Srini gets in, probably he can jump in there. So, Srini, once you're here, just give a shout out, okay? So I'm going to hand it over
Yeah,
back
I
to you.
am here. Can you folks hear me?
Fantastic. I can hear you very clear now. Yeah, I can hear you very clear now.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I have turned off my camera as well, just to save some bandwidth for others. Perfect. So, when do we create an Appium plugin? What is the necessity of having an Appium plugin, right? Let's say, okay, I'm just going through the messages. All says no good, clear, perfect, awesome. So let's say I wanted to introduce a new endpoint in Appium's own client-server architecture. I wanted to introduce a new endpoint that does XYZ functionality. You can do it without touching the Appium code base itself. That's one use case. Or if I have to update an existing command could be probably find element, create session, or it could be performing an action, performing a gesture as well through action API. So if we wanted to override and add some functionality on top of what we have on the Appium itself, so you can do it without touching the Appium code base. And the third use case is I wanted to introduce a new functionality altogether. Let's say I wanted to capture simulator logs as a new endpoint. I don't want to have the behavior of what Appium does currently, so I wanted to introduce a new functionality that just does this, right? So three use cases: introducing a new functionality, overriding the existing functionality and add some essence on top of it. Third, create a new endpoint and expose it from the existing Appium server without spinning up a new Express server or anything. So these are the three use cases where Appium plugin is going to help us. How easy it is to build an Appium plugin. We are going to build one Appium plugin live, but how does this fits in the existing architecture, right? So we need to understand how does it fits in into the existing architecture. So you might know Appium is a client server architecture. So you have client libraries on Java. Let's say I create a session by introducing new Android driver and automation name espresso by server options by passing quite a lot of espresso options, right? And it creates a session. by talking to the Appium server, which runs in your local or it runs in your cloud vendor, right? Then Appium server understands the capabilities and it creates a session. And once it talks to Espresso driver. Let's say we have set the automation name as Espresso driver. Espresso driver, it initiates a session with Espresso driver, and then it also installs an Espresso server inside your mobile device. Then it talks to Espresso server inside your mobile device. Espresso server running inside your mobile device is going to talk to the application under test. Once it talks to the application under test, it sends the response back to Espresso driver, and Espresso driver will send it back to Appium server, and Appium server will send back 200, 500, 400, whatever, back to your client. And client will say, okay, your test pass, green, all of that, right? So now Appium plugin comes here. Let's say we introduce a new functionality altogether. So what happens now? So client will talk to server. Server, instead of talking to Espresso driver, it knows, okay, there is a new functionality added by Srini and Sai, so it has to talk to Appium plugin now. So Appium server, instead of talking to driver, it talks to the plugin, and plugin will talk to the Espresso server running inside your device, and Espresso server will talk to the application under test, and then comes back to plugin and send it back to server, and server will send it back to client. This is all together. Let's say we introduce everything, a new functionality, brand new functionality. So what happens if I change find element or add some essence on top of find element, right? Or modify existing command, right? So client will talk to server. Server knows, okay, Srini and Sai have modified find element or create session or quit method or delete session, whatever, right? So Espresso server will talk to plugin since Srini and Sai has modified it now, right? So instead of talking to driver, it talks to the Espresso plugin. And once, let's say plugin does adding on console log, that's it. Okay, Srini and Sai added on console log and plugin does that console log. Once it has done that console log, it sends that remaining method. Ideally, let's say if you take find element, it has to find that element, right? So the core functionality is still there. We haven't modified anything. We just changed console log there. So it talks to the driver, and now driver takes care of remaining functionality, like finding an element or quitting a session or whatever. So driver will then talk to the Espresso server, and Espresso server running inside your machine, the device, will send back the response, and Espresso driver will send the response back to your Appium server, plugin, and then to server, and then to client. Client will say, oh, your test has been passed, right? So this is how it works internally. If you don't have plugin, it's all plain, it's all straight lines. Client will talk to server, server will talk to driver, Espresso driver, and driver will talk to Espresso server inside device. So it's all plain. But if you introduce something, so where does it benefits us? So Srini and Sai can introduce a plugin which other community can benefit, or let's say the community has introduced a new plugin where Srini and Sai can benefit out of it without touching the core code base of Appium. So we extend, add new functionalities, and let the whole community benefit from this plugin based architecture. This is the complete picture about how does plugin works internally inside or fits inside the existing Android architecture. And it's quite same for iOS as well. So instead of Espresso driver, it is going to be 𝐒𝐤𝐢 driver, and inside the device, instead of a random server, it's going to be WebDriver agent. As simple as that. The architecture remains same for both Android and iOS, right? So maybe since we talked about how does plugin fits into our existing architecture, Sai, do you have anything in mind? Does Appium provide something to us to ease this? Like say we want to create a plugin now. So for testing, does it provide something to me so I could test it back quickly and release it to community?
Yeah, definitely, Srini. Like I'm sharing now, apart from bringing in the flexibility to build plugins and drivers, right? We also bring a test harness system in place where you could, add that as a dependency, which can help you configure your server, configure your before and after hooks, basically running out of Mocha, and that way you could also, write good tests around the plugins and the drivers that you build. So that's something. It's
Awesome.
like consider this more like a support system, right, from Appium.
Awesome. So basically, it helps us to test whatever I am building. So we don't have to write everything from scratch,
Yeah.
and I don't need to spin up my emulator as
No.
well. Everything is taken care by Appium itself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you want? Do you have anything in mind in terms of what we are going to build today? Are we going to introduce something new? Are we going to introduce or change existing method? How are we going to? What are we going to do now?
I have some ideas in mind, Srini. Before that, I possibly want to ask the folks in the call over here.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you know that you could highlight an element in Appium? When I say highlight, right, don't consider more like highlighting at the color red, blue, and stuff. Consider like more like you could flash an element, right? An element can flicker before you perform any action, right? So that you know that okay, that's the element that we are going to perform an action on, right? Either it could be a text, it could be a button, it could be anything, right? How many of you folks know that there's a functionality like that in Appium where you can flash an element before an action is performed? I'm looking at the chat to see if anyone's going to say, yes, I've heard about it, no, I've not heard about it, and things like that. Anyone, I've heard such a functionality existing in Appium where you can typically highlight the element before you perform any. Not heard, not heard. I want to know it now. Okay. Okay, I see people have not heard about it, right? So, Srini, my idea today is I want you to help me build this plugin where
Mm-hmm.
we could actually, create a plugin which
Mm-hmm.
will, you know, uh, which will ideally, flash an element before any
Okay.
action is performed, right? For example,
Mm-hmm.
I want to modify the existing find element, right? Today, in today's world, whether
Okay.
it's a Selenium or Appium, so what we basically do is you say driver.find element by ID, XPath, class path, whatever locator strategy you do. Typically, we go find where the element is in the DOM, and then you try
Yep.
to perform some actions on it, right? You try to perform a
Exactly.
click, you try to perform. It could be anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do today is I want to like modify that find element, Srini, right?
Okay.
Modify the find
So.
element, which
Mm-hmm.
can ideally flicker first and then perform the click action.
Wow. Nice. So we are going to touch the second use case where we are going to change the existing method in the Appium, and I had introduced some new essence to it. Right.
Correct. Correct.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
I think someone quickly remembered
So
JavaScript executor on WebDriver world. Back old days, we used JavaScript executor and flash something on our web. Awesome. And
yes.
does
So
Appium provides
before
any
we
template for us? Sai?
Appium does not provide Srini, but at least I think you and me have created a template. So Appium does not provide a ready template. So what me and Srini have done is because we have been contributing for Appium for close to about 8 years now. And even when Appium 2 came in, we did a lot of testing and contribution around, and we built a lot of plugins. So what me and Srini have done to make everyone's life easier is we have created an Appium plugin template, and we are going to use this template to create the plugin which we are talking now. So I simply went into the repository called Appium plugin template. I'm going to use this template, okay, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to create a new template. Okay, cool. And I am going to name, I'm going to ideally name this template possibly like highlight element, right?
Okay.
Highlight element, right? Okay, cool. So let's make it public. Right now, I don't think I need any pipe. pipelines and stuff for this. At least for this, let's create this repository. Okay. People can use this template as well if you want to try and explore how do you want to build a plugin. So these links will be given to you. Don't worry about it, right? Okay. So the repository is ready. We have our initial commit. We have some basic things, right? So I'm going to quickly, clone this. Okay. Okay, git clone. Okay. Srini, I believe the font size is good, right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So all that I'm going to do is I'm going to do an npm init so that it can download all the required dependencies. People may ask like, hey, Sai, I mean, why should the plugin be only in Node? The reason being is the Appium server is on Node.js, right? Like how Srini was talking about. These, the plugins, what you build is actually tightly coupled with the server. So you are basically extending the base driver from the server, right? So which is in Node.js. So all your plugins and drivers that you want to build should be based out of Node.js. Okay. Meanwhile, the dependencies are downloading. I'll quickly, open it up in. Okay, Appium highlight element. So let's open that. Okay. Okay, so we have the highlight element code base as the dependencies installed. Let's see. Okay, it's installing. So let it do it bit. Okay. So before we jump into write the code, write to modify, Srini, what is the first thing that we possibly want to tell people about in the template? What
Maybe
is the change that we want
let's
to do from this template that we brought in?
Yep, let's open package.json and show the name of the plugin. Maybe we should change the name of the plugin from template to template to highlight element.
Okay, so I'm
And
gonna,
also we can update the Appium node available here. So we are going to give a name for it.
Yeah.
And we're also going to refer what is the main class for this complete project.
Okay.
Okay, probably the remaining ones are for the
And
documentations and stuffs like that. Yep, I think we're
looks
good.
good, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start from the main
So
class that we
one
have
thing to highlight,
initially defined now.
Sure, Srini. I'll just point out one thing, Srini, before we jump in there, right?
Sure.
Okay, this name, what you see over here, is basically it's a name for your node project. Okay, the name can be anything. This is basically a name for your node project over here. And Srini also asked me to you, and another important thing, probably Srini, we forgot is to mention is about the peer dependencies, right? When you build
Yep.
a plugin, you should also have this peer dependencies, right? I've added the peer dependency as Appium 2.1.1 because it's already in the template you can reuse. But let's say you don't want to use the template, right? You want to create your own. So this is the point number 2 that you need to make sure that you add this peer dependency. And then I'll jump into the next one, what Srini said. Add this Appium node, and inside that, you need to add an object, which is called the plugin name and the main class. Okay. And now the plugin name can be any name that you choose to give to your plugin. So right now, for our plugin that we're going to build, it makes sense to have something called as highlight element. So we're just calling it highlight element. And the main class is nothing but a class name. Okay. So that way we are telling the plugin that, or we're telling, when this plugin is getting loaded into Appium ecosystem, we're saying that, hey, you know what? There is a main class called highlight element. That's the entry point. And that's why we are actually making sure to tell that the main class is the highlight element. Right, Srini?
Perfect. Yep.
Let's get in, and you will see a plugin.js. So this needs to be renamed into a highlight
element.
Element. Okay, because like I said, this and this needs to be same. Okay, if you see this one, they need to be same. Okay, so it's highlight element, and okay, that's good. And the next thing is the index.js. Basically, I'm exporting things out. So that's also a highlight element, right? Because it's coming from this plugin class. So we are exporting the default class. So we're going to use it over there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we are good, right? So we have the template ready based on the functionality that what we want to do for today. Okay. The next thing that we want to do, very simple, is let's go ahead and sort of build this and see whether things are successfully compiling, building with no errors. Okay. So in
Okay.
package.json, we already have some scripts in place. So possibly this needs to be highlight element. Okay. And this also needs to be changed, right? From template plugin to
Highlight element.
highlight element. Sounds good, no, Srini? Okay.
Yep.
So we simply have a command which calls reinstall plugin, which will also do all the compiling, I believe. So it reinstalls, it runs npm install plugin, which also builds. So which means this should do the magic. So ideally, what we're trying to do over here is this entire highlight plugin, the plugin which we just wrote, we're trying to, using TypeScript to compile it, and we're trying to install it locally. Okay, so that you can activate this plugin and start using this plugin. Okay, highlight plugin name is already installed. That's fine, no problem. Okay, and now if you want to see whether the plugin is, what are the plugins available, right? So you simply say Appium plugin list. This basically is going to tell you all the plugins available, and you clearly see it says highlight element version 1 is a dev mode. That means right now it's not installed from npm or not from git or multiple sources. It's in a dev mode, meaning that it's a local instance that we have installed right now. Okay, a similar way, let's see, if you say driver list, it will tell you what are all the drivers available, right? So like when we spoke in the slides, Srini was explaining about Espresso driver, XUI driver, UI automatic driver. So these are all the official drivers that we have. So I've already installed the Espresso driver just to save time for our demo purposes. So we are right now good. And the next thing that we want to do is let's make sure that we are able to activate the plugin, right? This highlight plugin when the Appium server runs. So all that you need to do is you say Appium server, give the base path, and you say use -- use plugins equal to, in our case, it's going to be highlight element. Okay, because that's something what you gave in package.json, right? Srini, this guy, this is a plugin name. So you're supposed to activate it
Yes.
with that name, right? Okay. Server has started. Let's see what does these logs actually say, right? Okay, cool. So the logs say that it is using highlight element plugin. So we are only activating one plugin. And also you could see that it says that the highlight element plugin is active. Okay, so you've installed the plugin. Only when you say -- use highlight element, only then it will activate the plugin. If not, it's going to be installed in your machine, but it's not going to be active. Okay, so we have it active right now. Cool. So this very clearly says that we are able to compile, build the highlight element plugin, which we just ported from the template. Okay, so I'm going to kill this server right now. Okay, I'm going to shut the server. So let's go in now and do um, you know add this find element, right? That's one of the parts which Srini was explaining, where we could modify the existing functionalities of Appium, right? And what I want
Yes.
to do is I want to modify it in such a way that whenever find element call is being made from any of the clients, right? Respective, it could be any client I'm talking. It can be Java client, it could be WebDriver.io, it could be a .NET client, it could be a Python, it could be a Ruby, right? Any of these clients, when they say driver.find element, I want to make sure that you know my plugin, the plugin which we're going to build now, takes control of the find element modifies. I mean, it's like a pre-step, right? It's going to do something more than what the default find element is called. Okay. So, Shini, can I call it find element in this way,
Nope. I think
or can I
there
call
are
it
certain
like
signatures.
this?
Nope. We have certain signatures already been defined for
Okay.
how does the function looks like, how does the command looks like, what are all the parameters for it in our Appium base driver. So we should follow the same to override
Mhm.
the same functionality and add extra behaviors to it. So maybe we can quickly go back to Appium's base
Where do I
driver,
go, Shini? Where can I find this?
Appium
Okay,
repository,
so I go
Appium.
into Appium code base. So ideally, so you're saying that I just can't name anything, but there are
Yep.
certain ways that a function needs to be, named, right? Because I'm overriding the existing functions.
Yes.
Okay, so I go into which file, Srini, over here?
Appium, inside Appium packages. Let's go to the
Yeah.
packages and the base driver, routes.ts,
Mm-hmm.
routes.js. Okay.
Yeah.
Inside library, I mean lib.
Mm-hmm. I'm already there.
Yeah, perfect. And we can quickly search for find element maybe.
Find
Yeah.
element. Yeah, I see find element. I'm
So we should
supposed to
use
use the
the
same name
command
then?
name. Yes. So the same command name has to be the function name. And it also says on line number
Okay.
197, certain
Mm-hmm.
parameters are required using and value. Like using could be locator
Okay.
strategy and value could be the value of that locator strategy as well.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And what does this find element from a plugin angle accept over here for us as an argument, right?
Yep. So next driver and the list of arguments like using and value comes as part of rest of arguments. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So
And
for folks over here, right, what Srini is saying is whenever you want to override any of the functions which is existing, right, this basically route.js is got all the functions that is currently a part of Appium's ecosystem, right, and which is also a part of Selenium because we follow W3C protocol, right? So the same specs have been followed. So anything in this route.js, if you want to modify, you want to override this, is you should pick the same name as you find in the command, and you need to give it three arguments for that, which is next, driver, and args. So we'll come to see what is next, right, Srini? At least to what I know from the driver and args, it's pretty straightforward. Driver will give me all the driver information, right? Whatever happens in the
yes,
create session, like
yeah, exactly.
driver session ID, driver's port number, and things like that. An argument
Perfect.
is basically like whatever we are sending through the find element command, right? Like the
Exactly.
strategy as well as what's the other thing
Selector.
we call them? The locator strategy selectors. Correct. Correct. Okay. So I know that for a fact that arguments will have the locator strategy, right? So what we can do is let's deserialize the args and pick out the locator strategies, right?
Perfect. So we can,
So
so
I'm
it
going
comes
to
as part of JSON. So
quickly.
we can do JSON parse and then JSON parse, JSON
Okay.
stringify and the arguments and assign it to probably a constant
Can I call them locator
locator
strategy?
arcs. Okay, whatever. Locator strategy
Locator
and
args.
yeah, locator arcs and
Okay.
so now we have two values, one strategy and another one is selector as part of, okay, locator
Hmm.
arguments is nothing but an array. So as the first element, which
Hmm.
is index 0, will be strategy and index 1 will be the selector.
Okay. So this is going to be strategy you're saying, right?
Strategy, yep. And the
Okay.
next one is
And
going to be the selector.
okay, cool. So I have the strategy and I have the selector now, correct? What's
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that I need to do? So right now, if I can picturize the architecture you said, server calls the plugin, and plugin then can call the espresso server sitting inside the device, right?
Yes.
So which
Yep.
means I also need to get the espresso
Session
server
ID.
session ID then.
Yes. We can say
Cool.
driver dot.
And where can I find the session ID from?
Yeah, from
Yeah.
driver we can find it. Driver dot. Let's say here it's
Okay.
espresso ESPRESSO dot JW proxy dot session
Okay.
ID will
And
get
the
us the
session
session
ID.
ID. Yeah, iCaps. Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this as can I
Session
call it?
ID.
I'll just call it ID. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll just call it ID. Huh? Okay.
Okay.
And now we all know that it's a client server architecture, right? So I need to make a request into the server which is running inside the device, right, Srini?
Yes. Yes. So we need to make an API
In that
call.
case,
So
what I'm
HTTP
gonna
call.
do, okay, so I'm going to use Axios, okay?
Sure.
Can I use Axios?
Yes, perfectly fine. Any HTTP client.
So any HTTP, right? So I'm going to call this config,
And
and
inside
this is
config,
going
we
to
need to
do
say the
a
method post
okay.
URL. So we know the default
Okay,
URL
we'll come to the URL
is
part.
headers,
Okay.
content type, application JSON.
Okay, I'm going to simply
URL.
hard code this value for now. Okay.
Sure. 8300
You know,
slash session.
people might ask me.
And we
Okay,
also need to
if
give the
people
session
ask,
ID.
how do you know? Yeah. If people are asking, hey, how do you know it's running an 8300? I mean, that's the default port because we for espresso and 8200, 8200 for UI 8100 for UI automated. So the default is 8300. So that's why we are plugging it into 8300. So I'm going to get the ID for it, and we're
Slash
going to
element.
pass element, right? Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Headers.
And the next thing is headers, right?
Yep.
Headers. What's the header?
Content type.
Wait.
Content type.
Yeah,
Front type.
it's a default one, right?
Yeah. Application JSON.
Okay.
And data. Application slash JSON. I can. Perfect.
JSON. We are good,
Next
and I
is
need to
the
send the
data.
body, right?
Yep, exactly. So the
And data
body is
would
going to be using and value.
Value is going to be the selector, right?
Selector, exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Now we are basically going to make an Axios call into the server, right?
Perfect. Wait, Axios config and should give me a response.
And let's take this as a response, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We can navigate and identify the element ID.
Okay, so basically you need an element ID because on the element ID you want to perform the action, right?
Flash. Yep.
So then, okay.
Response
so then
dot data dot value dot capital element.
I mean, again, I'm saying, I mean, you could think that, hey, how do you know it's inside data, inside value, inside it's an element? I mean, basically, these are the contracts defined in the W3C spec. So if you go to W3C spec of WebDriver, you would actually find, what could be your response for a find element, right? Because me and Srini have been contributing for a while. We are sort of aware of this, but it's all documented. Okay, nothing fancy, nothing hidden out to someone over here. Okay, so I am going to. Okay,
so now maybe we can
copy this part. Okay.
Yep.
I'll just rename this. Okay. Oops. Okay. Flash config. We can call them. And I have the element. On the element, you basically need to provide the element ID, right?
Yes.
Is that how the endpoint looks for?
No.
For the
so we
flashing.
need to talk to
no, right?
Execute Mobile, which comes under Appium, which is a non-standard endpoint. So it has to be coming under Appium. So it has to be session slash session ID slash Appium because this flash is not decided, not designed as part of W3C standard, which is something provided by Appium. So it has to be Appium slash execute underscore mobile slash element ID slash flash. Data can
So
be
then, did I
empty.
put it correct? ID, Appium,
Yeah, you're
execute
good.
mobile, element ID, and flash. Is this correct? It's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then let's post this. Okay, I basically don't need
And
any response out of it, right?
yes.
Okay.
And we also
Now,
need
do
to
I need to
send the
return anything
control
out of
back.
this, Srini?
Yes, exactly. So now
Okay.
we
So how do
blocked
I
the
send the control back?
functionality. We have to send the control back
Mm-hmm.
by using return await next, so that it goes. I mean, Appium takes care of the control. Server takes care of the control.
Okay, so what is happening here, Srini? So you're saying that we need to give the control back to Appium. Do we need to give the control back to Appium so that it could perform a different action, or it would continue to do the remaining parts of find element?
Yes, it will continue to do the remaining ones. So we override it.
Okay.
Appium has default set of
Mm-hmm.
commands, so we will override it. We flash the element, and now it will go ahead and find the
Mm-hmm.
element, return it back to you again.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I mean, so we have written something, but we need to test it, right? This template also comes up with a simple WebDriver IO script. All that it does is it basically, very simple, right? It starts the session and it finds for an element, and it quits the session. That's all it is doing. Okay, nothing fancy here. So because we made some changes, so you could simply do a build. So every time you don't need to reinstall the plugin because it's in the developer mode, you can simply say rebuild it. Okay. So I've rebuilt it now, and I'm going to start the Appium plugin with this highlight element. Okay. 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 It didn't go good. So it says that type error, the ID argument must be of type string, received undefined. So this could
Plugin
possibly be coming
JS16.
out from, yeah, this is possibly coming out from Axios for us. Let's see which version. I've seen this before happening with uh, certain versions of Axios, you know throwing up this error. Let's quickly re remove the node modules and try to install them, just in case it's holding up this different version of Axios. But I definitely saw this happening sometime because of the ES versions, right? Okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to see if there's anything in the chat as questions that we can pick.
Okay, there is no questions on the chat
Okay,
left, but
Srini.
we have some questions on Q&A which I can take care meanwhile. What is your
Yeah, sure,
opinion
Srini,
of
go ahead.
need for an alternative of Appium in test industry? It's always good to have some uh, competitors, but Appium has been there in the industry, as Sai is saying, that we have been contributing for 8+ years, and it's good. If we have a competitor who does performs well, so we can inspire from there and grab some functionalities and redo it to the architecture of Appium. That would be great. Please cover how to contribute to Appium, maybe the same way how we are doing now, live. You can probably think about some of the use case and create an Appium plugin and make it available for community in a nutshell. How do you rate Appium over its competitors? Uh, I don't know what do we mean by competitors here. Is this a public repository containing demo code? We have a repository. We will share it at the end of the session, and we'll make sure it is available for you all. Give some opinion of need for an alternative. I'm not sure why we are looking for an alternative quite a lot. If you have some problems, feel free to raise it. We can try to address that. And if you have any specific features that you wanted that Appium is lagging, I would suggest you to go ahead and raise it. And if it is eye-catching, we will definitely do it. If it's a new driver, new plugin, doesn't matter, feel free to raise it. Could you assist me in determining the preferred IDE or tool? Again, it goes different. People like Sai has been using two IDEs and I'm using two IDEs. It's personal preference. I already installed Appium 2.0 using Node.js. What are the subsequent steps I need to take to begin using Appium? I'm sure Lambda Test has a wonderful course on Appium, so I would suggest you to go forward, learn from the course to proceed forward on it. And we also have a wonderful migration guide as part of Appium 2.0. I would suggest you folks to look into it and see if that makes sense for you folks to switch your existing test to Appium 2.0. Can you please explain how to handle challenges? There are challenges when you are automating the Flutter app. So we have a Flutter driver from 𝐒𝐚𝐢, which is from the community. Appium officially doesn't support Flutter. Flutter also has changed their architecture an year ago. If you have something that is not working on Flutter driver as a community, I think we should fix it. But it's good if you have better knowledge on Flutter. Maybe we can fix it together. We still need a good amount of knowledge around that. So if anyone has Flutter development experience, always feel free to contribute, and definitely Appium team can help make it better. Potential challenges or limitations that users might encounter while working with plugins in Appium 2.0. Appium 2.0 landed in market probably 1.5 to 2 years back, and it's been there in the beta for quite some time and stable as well in beta, and it's out of beta and we are in 1.1, I mean 2.1.1 as well. So I would suggest you folks to check what's the new changes. I don't see any limitations. Okay, maybe Sai, you have it ready. Maybe you can quickly put
Oh,
it there.
yeah. I can share my screen now.
Awesome.
I pulled out another report. Okay, so okay, wait. Let me just did some renaming around, and I pulled out flash. Okay, I'll simply let it start. I'll just pull this up. Okay, so people can see. So all that I'm doing is I'm saying npm test, and I'll pull out the emulator. Okay. So what basically we're doing here is all that it is doing is it is trying to click on driver dot so it's trying to find an animation element, right? So if you observe when the test is I'll probably highlight it when it is running. So you could see that list with an animation, it should basically flash for us. So if you see this, right, how many of you observed it? Do you want me to run it again once? Okay, it is
Yeah, I think
driver
it's better
dot
to run.
okay, quit is not a function. Isn't quit a function, Srini? Driver dot quit in WebDriver IO. Okay, anyways, doesn't matter. Okay, we'll again run this. So look into this animation. Okay, so it's going to like flash for certain duration, but again that's configurable. We can still configure it, do more within the plugin, right? Let's give it a shot. So if you observe again, you see the animation thing flashed in, right? So now if you want to take it to the next level, right, from here, so what we can also do is you could simply say dot click, right? So I'm also going to click on that element.
Sai, quit is from Java client. We need to find the equivalent for quit in WDA, WebDriver. Maybe
Okay.
you need to check the doc.
Check the documentation, is it? Okay.
Okay, it
I
has
think it's
clicked it.
going to
Maybe do you want to
be,
run it again?
yeah, I'll run it again with this, right? Okay, I'm going to this time point the arrow even before it is doing, right? So it's going to be somewhere here. I've not moved my emulator. So you could see the animation flashing multiple times, and What's it doing? Too many hanging sessions, Srini, because I have not killed them.
Okay.
Espresso's got a lot actually. No. Okay, wait. Let's remove this and give it a short once. Okay. Meanwhile, can you see Srini? What is it with
Yes. I'm checking it.
terminating it? Right. Looks like it's got now multiple sessions hanging. Let's wait for it to start and try again. Okay. 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 Harshit, we have another 15 minutes, is it?
I think we are shooting the time already, I think.
Okay. You saw that, right? It flickered and then it went ahead and clicked. Okay.
Yep.
I will have to, but yes, we are nearing the
Uh,
time, so probably best to wrap this up ASAP. We'll also take up some quick Q&A in case you would want to add something important to the end of the session. Please take this up. Yes.
yeah, sure. Thanks. Okay.
Sure.
A last thing that possibly want to end is yeah. The last thing that I possibly want to end and show is you see this. We basically modified the find element. We flashed it and then we gave the control back to the default find element, and that's where it was able to perform the quit, right? A similar way you could also do is introduce your own functions, and basically through that you can actually uh, you know this is more like introducing a new function into Appium when something is not already existing, right? And you can also do in such a way. And there are a lot of examples that me and Srini have like sort of worked on different Appium plugins. So we'll provide those links as well for you in the chat when we're taking up the Q&As. You can refer to that, and also we'll give you the links to this Flash plugin uh, once we publish it to npm. Or maybe Harshit, we can take questions, Harshit, if we are already shooting up time.
Yeah, let's take a couple questions real quick. The last we left off was from this point. I'm putting the questions up on the screen. We can quickly address them as we go.
How does Appium
Okay.
support
How does
version control
Appium
sites for mobile
control
testing?
sites?
I don't get what does version control sites mean.
Version control means, yeah.
Yeah,
Please extend to this question if needed. Let's skip on to the next one. Yeah, for now.
yeah. Can learning Appium
Can
improve my
Appium
career
improve?
skills given that I'm already proficient in Selenium with Java? I think if you want to land on mobile testing, Appium is going to be quite easy if you already know Selenium and Java. So you can uh, make sure you use the same methods. There are quite a few things that are new when it comes to mobile testing. How do you perform gestures and specifics to mobile? So it's easy for you to learn, and it will definitely help if you are getting into mobile testing. Yeah,
Okay, next one's
we
about
can.
pace. How can we make this
How to
faster?
make test runs quicker, and if you are referring to making test runs quicker in iOS, you can make sure there is WebDriver agent already installed. Rather than Appium installing it, you install it and refer to the WebDriver agent. There are capabilities that make sure that there is a WebDriver agent installed, and use the existing WebDriver agent on the device, because that's the one thing that takes a lot of time to build it, install it, and blah blah blah. And there is a wonderful article as well on Appium Pro. How do you make a WebDriver agent faster, right? So you can rebuild a custom WebDriver agent as well. That will help you on iOS.
All right, we are 10 minutes over the normal designated time. So, although I would like to take up as many questions as possible, and we all would, but let's call it a wrap for now. I would like to share that we have an open thread discussion going on over here. So, if your questions were not answered up till this point, please feel free to share them over the community link that I'm pinning on the chat, right? So, ourselves and the speakers and technical experts, our lambdas, will be able to respond to this. Right. Thank you so much. Nothing beats a practical demo. So, Sai, Srinivasan, Thank you so much for joining us. I know you guys had a busy schedule, but thanks a lot for being here with us. And a big thank you for everyone who for joining us in this interactive session and having the Q&A up to the mark, right? So feel free to drop the questions that haven't been addressed so far on the community. And Sai Srinivasan, I'm so sorry. Please, if you have something else to continue, please let us know. Go with it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you. Thank you,
us.
Harshit. Thank
Yeah,
you.
take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.